As I mentioned, we're going to go over with the different employee-sponsored plans. Most of you are very familiar with 401k. You might have had one before you started your own business. But other ones, as a business owner, there's the SEP, the Simplified Employee Pension. There's a simple IRA, the 401k, the enhancement of a safe harbor 401k, and there can be, in some cases, tax credits for depending on how you're setting it up. So let's talk about questions for you to consider. We've gone through this poll, okay? How much, if you could, if life was perfect, how much would you want to put away? How could you fund it? Looking at the company profits, the cash flows, what's your compensation range? How important is it for it to be flexible versus you being mandated to make contributions for yourself and or your employees, assuming that you have some. And I believe in the resource guide, these questions are also there. Let me just check. Looks like page 4. There goes I have 2 screens I'm looking at, so I can, yes, if you go to page 4, you have a fillable resource guide that you can answer some of these questions to yourself. But let's get started in looking at the baseline of the case study that I'm going to use for you to be able to kind of put numbers together. Having numbers, usually from a visual standpoint as well, will hopefully help you in understanding some of these potential complex different retirement plans. So in this case, C Corp, you have an owner, 6 employees. And so this is where we will go through all of the different plans and how we're going to discuss the different type of plans. So the biggest thing with any sort of retirement plan, one size does not fit all. So there's different eligibility requirements. In some cases, there's no eligibility requirements. Administrative concerns. Who as an entrepreneur wants to have more paperwork and having to fill out forms? In some cases, there's discrimination testing issues, and that is strictly with the 401k. Also, your investment policy as a business and how that relates to your retirement plan. And in some cases, business owners feel that having a retirement plan, they also want to provide employee education. So many, especially entry-level employees, if they don't get financial education from home, they don't get it from school. I have some business owners who want to make sure that their employees can better their own life by understanding just their own financial capacity and their wealth. And in some cases, maybe you want to just provide a retirement contributions, or maybe you want the employee to share in some of that, in those contributions. So it really depends, again, what is your plan as a business owner and what you want to do. And the different plans have all these different aspects. The first one that we're going to go over is the SEP, which is a Simplified Employee Pension. And with the SEP, the key features, you can have employees or you don't have to. A lot of individual business owners will create their own SEP simply because they have the ability to, my favorite word, stash some of their earnings into a savings retirement plan. And the limits with SEPs are much greater. One of the aspects of a SEP, however, is there are no employee contributions. It is strictly 100% employer funded, thereby kind of think of it as a pension where the employer is the only one to make those contributions. There's no salary deferral at all from your employees. Again, it is strictly the employer. The eligibility of this plan is generally anyone who's at least 21 and they've worked for you 3 of the past 5 years. It's really easy to set up this IRA. It's in the employee's name. All you have to do to operate it is you just write the check, or you have an ACH transfer into their account, and that's it. There's no employee notifications, no documents you really have to provide. You provide the money and you're good. The aspect, however, is when I mentioned the ability to fund this, it's the lesser of 25% of overall compensation and a maximum of $66,000. Obviously, you have to have the cash flow in order to fund a SEP for yourself and or for your employees, but it's very simple. If we look at the next slide showing the strengths and the considerations, definitely very low cost, easy. As I mentioned, you write a check. There's no vesting, there's no loans that are allowed. So that can be something as a detriment, but again, depending on what you're looking to provide for you and or your employees, this is one of the simplest options as a SEP. On the next screen, we'll go back to the numbers where you're showing the salary amounts. So you, John, the owner, making $200,000 in income, you are able to stash 25%, which in this case is $50,000. As we go through these comparisons of the plans going forward, you'll see the total employer cost. And of course, as the business owner, how much is coming back to you? You definitely can share with your employees, but as a business owner, you taking the risks, you also should be getting the rewards. And this is one way where you can see the employer cost is $118,750 and the percent to the owner is 42%. As a business, also, if you are in a service industry and have a great cash flow, this is a great way to contribute to this type of plan because these contributions are deductible as a business expense. So it will lower your profit and therefore pay less tax and put more money in your pocket. The next plan we're going to go over is the simple IRA.
I have a quick question on this one, Karen, and it's a very basic question. But so for this one where only the employer contributes, is that true of all pensions? Is that the difference between a pension and other plans?
Yes, generally. Pensions just overall, as maybe our grandparents would know it as, just really don't exist. I think the last numbers, it's less than 8% or less than 11% in this day and age of companies that even offer pensions anymore, where it was based on that loyalty, having in a way that golden handcuff, that when you retired, that was your money, also as a complement to Social Security. And so, yes, in Colorado, There's PERS, which is for state employees, and different states have different pension amounts for either educators or law enforcement, any government employees. But yes, that's one of the things where pension, you just get the funds, you do not contribute.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So if we go to the simple stands for Savings Incentive Match Plan for employees. So right there, think of it, simple is longer, and therefore with that M for match, one of the key features here is that both the employer and the employee are able to make contributions. So one of the things, and I'm assuming everyone on this webinar, is you have less than 100 employees. If you have over 100 employees, this isn't even an option. But if you do, your employees, and part of the eligibility is that your employees, in order to be qualified to get a match, would be they have to work for you 2 previous years, and that the plan is that they will continue to work for you in the existing year. Simple does not have any age requirements. And so if you as a business owner have some of your minor children working for you, this is another way that you as the business, assuming you have the cash flow, can contribute to those minor children, and they only have to work for you part of the year. There's no hour requirements like there is in some of the other aspects, other plans where you have to work at least 1,000 hours. So both the SEP and the simple, as long as you work sometime during the year, you would be eligible to be able to receive contributions as a match. And you do, however, have to make at least $5,000 a year. So if somebody works for you very part-time once a month and they only make $3,000 a year for you as an employee, they would not be able to receive your match. Like a SEP, these are individually owned IRAs. You write the check, you make the contribution, you have deductions from your employee's payroll if they would like, and that money just gets transferred into those IRA accounts. So if we look at some of the details, there are deadlines with a simple IRA. You have to establish it by October 1st, which it's only June today. So you have a couple of months if you decided you wanted to have a simple IRA plan. Also, when the employee decides to withhold 2% of their compensation and defer it into this IRA, you have 30 days in which to forward those funds into their personal IRA. For the match, however, you have until the tax deadline. And let's say you extend it once or twice and you don't actually file this year's tax return till next October, you have until next October to make the employee matching contribution. Also, getting a little bit more on some requirements, you have to distribute a summary description to the employees by November 2nd, letting them know what that contribution will take place. And so the good news is you don't have any government documents like you do with a 401k. There's an extreme amount of paperwork having a 401k and government reporting. With the simple reporting, there is none. For 2023, the maximum someone can defer is $15,500. Last year, it only went up. I think the previous year it was $13,500 and then it went up to $14,000. But for 2023, the maximum now is $15,500. With the match, however, it cannot be more than 3% of their compensation. And if you have employees who don't contribute, you have a choice of also giving them the 3%, or you can have a 2% for everybody. And so some employees, maybe they personally just can't start contributing into their IRA, but you still want to provide a match for them. Then people that are not contributing, their match would be 2%. The one thing, we talked about the November 2nd deadline. On the next slide, kind of an overview of strengths and considerations. Again, this is in your resource guide. Let me just check. SEP simple, we're going past. And so this will, if you're following along in your resource guide, gives you the highlights of the strengths and how to operate the plans and the details. So very easy to set up. There's no administrative costs. There's no testing. That's the biggest, again, difference between SEP Simple and a 401k that requires testing for highly compensated employees versus non-highly compensated. The one difference with the Simple is if someone does withdraw money into their IRA, their Simple IRA, normally if you're under 59 and a half and you withdraw the money, it's a 10% penalty. With the Simple, if you withdraw within the first 2 years, it's actually a 25% penalty if they have not met the requirements for an exception. Granted, if you're going to put money away in savings or retirement, I highly recommend whoever you work with that they counsel and make sure these employees are putting amount away that they can afford. And a lot of this comes back to basic budgeting, basic financial education. When I work with business owners, I often have separate employee wellness educational seminars to make sure that they're not putting away too much money and then something happens and they don't have an emergency fund and then they have to withdraw from their IRA and take a 25% penalty. That's just crazy. So the Simple IRA does have that, but if you educate your employees and even yourself, know that trying to have that mindset when the money goes in there for retirement, it's in there until you retire, and hopefully that you don't need to withdraw any. With the Simple IRA, you can see there for consideration, there's no vesting. So if somebody leaves you after you put the money in, it's gone. And they also are not able to take loans against their retirement balances with a Simple IRA. So if we look at the comparison on the next slide with the SEP and the Simple, so you can see how much the employer cost under a SEP of $118,750. In this case, assuming everybody deferred and the match, in this case, the cost to the employer is only $30,000, but you can see the percent to the owner is 73%. So this way, you as the business owner can stash money into your retirement account. And then the business can also match and increase. kind of the same money within your company. However, you are able to defer and get that match. We're going to go into a little bit more complicated into the 401k. This is where the eligibility, you can set those requirements. Perhaps someone has to work at least 1,000 hours. They have to be 21 and they have to work for you for 2 years before they can contribute, before you will match and or also participate in a safe harbor profit sharing plan. Most startup plans, I would say, do have age 21, but 1 year usually as service before someone's eligible to participate. Some companies allow you to do it after 1 quarter. Again, you decide. You are the business owner. You decide if this is an employee benefit that you want to offer because you're having retention issues. And more employees aren't just looking for the hourly wage, they're looking for the full benefit package. The contribution limits with 401k are higher than the 15.5 for a simple. In this case, for 2023, the contribution limits are $22,500. If you're over 50, there's something called a catch-up amount, which is $7,500. So if you have an employee who's 52 years old, they could contribute and defer up to $22,500 for a regular amount, plus the $7,500, which quick numbers is 30 grand. So again, hopefully somebody at age 52 isn't starting to retire. Maybe they have, with a previous job or someplace that they've started to contribute, because the biggest opportunity people have with a retirement plan is the time value of money and how it compounds based on your investment choices. So the deadlines are similar to the simple, where you have October 1st to establish a plan. And so there's a lot more paperwork, but there's something called a TPA, third-party administrator. Their sole job, profession, company is they do all that paperwork so you don't have to. Of course, you pay fees. It's not exorbitant, maybe 1,000 or 1,800, depending on the size and the complexity of your plan. But you can totally delegate all of the paperwork. But the first step in establishing a 401k is the company has to have a resolution just to establish the plan. Then someone needs to be the individual authorized to sign the adoption agreement, usually the owner. It could be your operating manager, human resource manager. If you're a small company of 10, you may have someone that fits that description as a position, or you may not. It might be you. Then the third aspect is having the elements of the qualified plan. What outlines who's eligible, the contribution, the distribution rules, the vesting schedule, meaning as you make employer contributions, you're not going to give it to them 100% like you would with a SEP and a simple. Remember, I said there's no vesting in those. With a 401k plan, you can say of the employer contributions, you can get 20% vested every year. So basically you'd have to stay, one of your employees would have to stay with you 5 years, right? 20% each year in order to get that full employer contribution. You could also say 33% and do it over 3 years. You can decide whatever you want for your vesting schedule. You can also decide whether or not you want to allow your employees to take a loan against their 401k. That's a whole nother conversation as to why and when and if someone should be able to. But if you feel that your mission here is to provide for your employees, and you do want them to have a loan because they want to buy a house, or they have a medical emergency or something, and you do want that capability, that's fine. However, know that those are additional costs that someone has to manage and oversee, can be that third-party administrator. But as things are more complicated, there's going to be some of those fees and administrative requirements. The other thing with the 401k plan that I mentioned, now you're talking about government requirements. There's something called a Form 5500, and that deals with the Department of Labor. Often I've seen where a CPA will be that registered person that files that every year. But it depends on, oh, I'm getting feedback, Hannah. Okay, thank you. Someone put themselves on mute. But it will go through and explain everything there is part of the plan. And you also need to provide to your employees, like you did with the Simple, a summary plan description that talks about the fees, the expenses, but more importantly, the investment choices that you as the sponsor of the plan decide to provide to your employees. Generally, you're working with a financial advisor who works in the 401k space and will give you a full array of investment choices. And you, as the sponsor, decide which are going to be in the fixed income bond arena, which ones in the equities of large cap, mid cap, small cap, international, and emerging. So those are things that you would decide. If we look at the strengths and considerations on the next screen, again, this is in your resource guide, a lot of flexibility. You can decide so many things as a business owner. Again, which plan do you choose, but also how do you design your plan? And there are financial professionals that can help you based on your goals and what you're trying to achieve for your company. It is funded by both employee and employer. There's definitely higher contribution limits than a Simple would be. And you can control that vesting schedule. Remember, you decide when that employer match actually is available to those employees if and when they leave your company. And the participants choose how they want it invested. If somebody's 25, they probably want to be a lot more aggressive than somebody who's 60 because they want their investments, because it will be volatile in the market. The employee is the one who decides what can happen. You do have discrimination testing. You have reporting requirements. But also the record keeper, the administrator, generally will kind of handle a lot of those things. And in this case, With the 401k, the highly compensated people may have limits based on all of the non-highly compensated. So if you pay yourself $150,000, some of you might say, yeah, I wish, and your employees are only making 20 and 30, you don't get to have that larger employer match. There's formulas. Again, that's not something you want to get. There's a lot of different formulas, and there's financial professionals that can help you with that. We'll go next into the 401k profit sharing to show you that difference where you can avoid that testing. Here's a good comparison again, the SEP, the simple, the 401k. In this case, we're showing that there is no match, but it allows all the employees to defer some money into their IRA account. In this case, you, the owner, John or Judy, are able to put away $18,500 because you are over 50 and you can have that catch-up amount. So in this case, the total cost to the employer is $18,500. So let's go to the Safe Harbor 401k. And the biggest difference here, same 401k, but there's a mandatory employer contribution, and it has a few additional requirements. However, you get to automatically pass all of the discrimination testing, which the 401k, the regular 401k, cannot avoid. So in this case, the biggest advantage to a business owner is that you are able to truly maximize your salary deferrals. It can be a little bit more expensive from the costs, but if you, again, are in a service industry or have fabulous cash flow and you are able to and are seeking ways to add employee value, but also put more dollars in your own pocket, this is a great way for you as the business owner to not have to deal with all of that testing and able to put more money away. So one thing I want to talk about when I said about the match, there's basically two options for that employer match. It's either 3% of the deferred compensation, 100% of it, whatever that 3% is, you match it, plus a 50% match on any deferrals between 3 to 5%. So if you think about it, it's basically 4% on the compensation that's out there. You can, another enhanced match is that you just complete 100% match on the full 4%, rather than 100% on the first 3% and then 50% on the 3 to 5%, equaling 4, or you just say, I'm just going to do 4% and I'm done regardless of whatever it is. So if we look at here on the strengths and considerations on the next slide, again, the baseline of the 401k gives you a lot of flexibility. The employer and the employee get to fund it. Definitely having higher contribution limits. The biggest thing with the Safe Harbor, you pass all of the testing. Vesting schedules also are allowed. You can decide how you want to coordinate that. And like the 401k, the employer is a fiduciary. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but there's, as of January 1 of 2021, there's something called a pooled employer plan, where it's basically a 401k in a group of companies that get together, where a financial institution is actually the fiduciary. You as the business owner, employer are not. But PEPs and MEPs are a whole nother conversation. So let's do the comparison between the SEP, the simple, and the 401k safe harbor. Here, the total cost to the employer is $45,000. But if you notice, that percent to the owner is $75,000 compared to the SEP, compared to a simple. The next one, which the Colorado Secured Savings Plan, I'm not sure if it's officially considered a QACA. However, well, it wouldn't be, because those are just Roth IRAs. But with a QACA 401k, this is where some companies almost are feeling that employees either aren't educated enough or they want to help their employees. And in this case, if you have a QACA 401k, there's an automatic enrollment feature. So when your employee joins, they automatically, first year, 3%. Next year, it goes up, I think, 1% every year. But it allows for the employer to really help the employee by saying saving for retirement is critical. And with your new paycheck as a new employee, you're going to get automatically enrolled. And without even knowing it, you are giving your employees a benefit by having an automatic enrollment. And so the employees will be able to manage their spending and their budgets based on what they get with that automatic contribution already happening. It is similar in the sense that with a safe harbor and the QACA, they are vested 100% after 2 years of service, if that's the type of 401k plan you have. So really, what plan is best? It really depends on what your goals are. Go back. There we go. Thank you. I think it is slide 18 or page 18 in your, nope, it's not. It's in here. I thought it was page 18. Which plan is best? It is. What's the goal? What are you trying to accomplish? Do you have the cash flow, the stability within your business to set something up that requires mandated contributions? Maybe if you're a newer business owner and you still have student loan debt you're dealing with, that's definitely a consideration, because that cash flow contribution to any sort of retirement plan is going to be challenged with those student loan debts, versus if you have been in business for many years and you're an empty nester, the kids are gone, your goal might be to now, because your cash flow allows you to put away a lot more. You can look at what is the percentage that goes to you, the owner, or is it more that you're finding you want to and need to offer a benefit to your employees for retention, to build loyalty, to build trust, whatever your business mission is. It really depends on what you are looking to provide. In the next couple of slides, it talks about other plans. there is description in your resource guide. I'm really not going to go into these, a lot of detail, and we just don't have that much time. So let's, if we can, skip over to the tax credit slide. Right there. So as a side note, there are currently some tax credits if and when you set up a plan that you can possibly, and work with your CPA on maybe deciding which of these plans might be best for you. But you can see there's a 50% of the cost for the first 3 years of your plan. So if 2023 is the year that you're going to start some sort of retirement plan, whatever the costs are in establishing that plan, whether it's through the TPA or the actual investment financial institution that's going to hold the assets and process the contributions. And know also, though, that it's a maximum of $5,000 of the credit. But for 3 years, that's $15,000 to get you set up and established. And so who doesn't like a tax credit? The next one goes into savers credits. That's a little bit more specific if to an individual, that they can get some tax credits based on their contribution. It's definitely limited to AGI, adjusted gross income. So somebody who's making $150,000 would not be able to get any of these saver credits because it is for people with lower adjusted gross incomes. You can see there, 66,000 is the most someone could get a tax credit. So looking at your resource guide that you have, it goes through what plan is best for you. And so I'm hoping that you've looked at your resource guide as we've gone through things. On the very last page, really gives you a breakdown on the personal objectives. What's your personal goal for retirement? And how many employees do you have? Are they full-time? Are you going to be adding some more employees? Your business objectives. Do you want your employees to be able to put money away? These are some of the corporate sort of IRA plans that have distinctive rules with the IRS. For those of you who have companies in the state of Colorado, I think there are now 13 states in the country. This year, as of January 1, the state of Colorado, if you don't offer one of these plans, a SEP, a simple, a 401k, a safe harbor, the state of Colorado is now mandating that you as a business owner, if you've been in business at least 2 years and you have 5 or more people that work for you. We're not talking part-time and FTE equivalents, right? You have 5 people, so that's normally viewed as 2.5. Not in this case. The state of Colorado is stating, again, 2 years or more, 5 or more people, you have to provide some sort of retirement plan. And if you don't, then you have to provide to your employees the ability to establish a retirement plan, which is a Roth IRA. That is the product. A Roth IRA is after-tax dollars. So they pay tax on their wages, and then there's a contribution amount that will go into their IRA. You as a business owner are not allowed to contribute. You are not allowed to give them advice. You simply have to register with the state of Colorado to either say you're exempt because you're establishing some other plan, or you simply say, I will register with the state. There's some paperwork you complete. Your employees can decide. It is a minimum of 3%. And they decide after that. It basically goes into a Roth IRA with a couple of investment options, and it is strictly up to them. But the state of Colorado feels that many states do not provide for their lower income employees. And so this is a way for those employees to have access. Happy to answer some questions. I hope this was helpful for you. Feel free to schedule an appointment with any of the SBDC consultants, or talk with a financial advisor who can help you customize and go through more what might work for your company.
Great. Thank you, Karen. Yeah, this has been really helpful. And we were just getting some comments in the chat about how helpful it has been to do the comparisons between plans. We do have just a couple minutes if there are some questions from anyone on the call. And I guess I'll kick us off with a clarification about that, the 5 employees for the secured savings program. Do you, as the business owner working for yourself, do you count as one of those 5? Yep. Or it's 5 in addition to you?
Nope, 5 names.
Okay.
Which you might be the only full-time person. So you could in your mind think, okay, what makes up that 4 other full-time equivalent? So it could be you and 8 part-timers. No, the state of Colorado says it is names, social security numbers, 5 people.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And then if you already have some other plan set up, or you're in the process of setting that up, you wouldn't have to go through that, but you would still have to report that to, or somehow let the state know that you have this other plan set up.
Yes, yes and no. I've been following the Colorado Secured Savings Commission, the regulations that's been going on for the past 3 years. It is my understanding that the state of Colorado knows primarily who has a who completes the Form 5500 for a 401k. So the state of Colorado is supposedly sending a postcard or some sort of email that says, that invites you to start with the mandated plan. If for some reason the paperwork at the state or their information is incorrect, you can just let them know. On the website for the Colorado plan, there's 2 areas for the employer and the employee. And so it walks you through a lot of the detail and how you can get registered. I will say that June 30th is the deadline if you have 50 or fewer employees to register. However, the state of Colorado is not going to fine and have penalties until next 2024. And I'm not sure if it's January or if they were going to say it started February 1st, but they're really trying to get everything, everybody either exempted because you already have a plan, or you will sign up with the state of Colorado.
Okay, great. Thank you. Those are some really helpful tidbits there. And I did put the link for anyone who's interested for more information on that to the state page there in the chat. We'll also include that in the email follow-up. And as Karen mentioned, she's one of our SBDC consultants. So if you want to work with her through more of your specific questions for your situation, about your, retirement plans you could offer to your employees, or any other financial questions you're having about your business, you can schedule an appointment with her through her link there in the chat. But we do want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know we are at the top of the hour or just past, so we really appreciate you all joining us. And thank you so much, Karen, for all this info. It can feel really overwhelming and scary, but you broke it down for us so that it was manageable. So we really appreciate that. And if there's nothing else, we'll wish you all a great afternoon.
Wonderful. Thank you, Hannah. I'm glad to be here, and hopefully this was educational for everyone. Have a great day.